Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni. I'm an energy healer and empowerment coach. And this podcast is for people, for you, really, for anyone to take something from it. I'm sure there is nuggets of wisdom for you to hear, and I just invite you to open your heart and listen to what comes. So let me introduce our guest today. So with me today, Parul Dua Makkar. Parul, hi, so lovely to have you here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, I know. Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Lovely, lovely. So let's get started. Tell us something about you. Tell us, where do we start?
Well, first of all, I'm in New York, and we finally got the timings got done. And I'm a dentist, and why I'm here, what's brought me to this stage of my life is having to lose my younger and only sibling, who is a dentist like myself. And you expect life to go a certain way, and when it completely goes off track, upside down, it pauses you to stop and reflect on what just happened and process. And so now that I'm a dentist, and Manu died from a oral cancer, which is in our field, and he was a dentist himself, I'm taking this tragedy and trying to make a better positive change, sharing the story, sharing signs, symptoms, and sharing his legacy. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me and what I do.
Yes, and of course, I'm very sorry to hear of your loss. But on the other hand, yes, as you say, raising awareness and raising, helping people to recognize the signs, and it's so important. So I'm very excited that we're going to get into that in a minute. Um, so so let's see. I mean, where would you like to start? Shall we go before his passing, or do you want to go back to that time or after?
Yeah, so Manu was 34. He was 33 when he got diagnosed, really young. A lot of people don't expect to be in their 30s and have a terminal cancer. And for me, the process more has been accepting the reality of it all and having to find a way to heal, because Manu's a lot of Manu's diagnosis happened during COVID. So, we all know how borders got shut down. Canada, he was in Canada, I was in US. I couldn't travel to go see him. I had to have a compassion release. And I'm sure different people around the world know this process is not easy to obtain. I had to quarantine for 2 weeks. So it was such a tough process. I did not even get to say goodbye to him. I said goodbye to him on a video call like this, where he was sedated, and watching my elderly parents kiss his deceased body when he had passed. So it was very out of mind, out of body experience. Like, you're just an autopilot, you're just zoned, and you're trying to, like, okay, I have to book a funeral, I have to book a casket, I have to find a casket, I have to pick a suit to be buried, to be cremated in, and all these process that you have to do. And it's how to heal from the tragedy of it all, being alone, because I live in US and I don't have my core family. Like, my grandparents passed at the same time. I didn't have my parents around me. I had no other siblings to share the grief with, and it's navigating this loss. And I found therapy in writing, and sharing, and I think collectively sharing grief helps.
Yeah, yeah. I recognize that from my own experience. I lost my brother to melanoma when he was 42, and that was 13 years ago. And similar, actually, I'm in the UK. He was in the Netherlands, and my parents in Israel. And so
Wow.
they they flew his body to Israel to be buried there. And I was pregnant, nearly 9 months pregnant with my younger daughter. So yeah, I stayed here without everyone. So it was I definitely, I feel
Yeah.
I know exactly what you are describing.
And you want to
Um,
be, happy for your baby, and you're excited for a new life, and you're trying to say goodbye to another. It's such a hard balance.
it was really, yeah, really, really tough. Um, But for you, really, how do you? I mean, you're saying that the writing helped, and sharing also helped a lot. I know, but what was that journey of healing? I mean, I'm not saying we ever really completely heal, but what was that like for you?
Yeah, healing doesn't completely happen. And I think you'll say that you will resonate with this, that even after 13 years, it feels like yesterday, right? And like for me too, the pain is still very raw. It's only been a couple of years. So Manu knew his cancer, it was terminal. He knew he was going to die. We knew. And death was this elephant in the room. We all knew it was coming. It was around the corner. He had a few months. Like I went to see him in December of 2020 in the middle of COVID without being vaccinated, the whole process, scared because what if I got COVID? And my parents, they're like, one son is dying, the other one too gets COVID. What's going to happen? Nobody knew. It was like the wild, wild west. And, but I came and I was told that he's not going to have his birthday's in June. He would have been 35. And I was told he's not going to have until June. He's going to die before that. And Manu knew that. He had actually sold his dental practice, um, finalized his will. He was telling me about all this paperwork, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about it because we didn't. We knew it was around the corner, but we didn't talk about it, not wanting to accept it. So we dodged. And so Manu, as a way for himself, as an outlet, because he couldn't walk, he was a rugby player, he played all sports, tennis, kayaking, whatever, and he couldn't even take a few steps. He was in a lot of isolation anytime he was in the hospital because of COVID restrictions. He was in isolation. He didn't have me around. His parents were elderly. They were just dropping chemo. Radiation was dropped to the hospital and come back. So for him to stay mentally strong through this process of pain and all the surgeries, he started chronicling his journey about life, and he talked about his life lessons. And when I went in December, he specifically asked me one thing. He's like, I want to be published. I want my writings in some form into a book. And I said, sure, I will work on this and you work on writing. Unfortunately, the way things transpired, because he said, I want to keep writing as long as I can. And he was not in a hurry to publish it. So when he died, I found his laptop, I found his writings, and I put together the book. And I wrote the foreword and the epilogue to how cancer still, what the aftermath of it is when, a sibling dies or a loved one dies. And so I helped finish the book that he wanted. And that's, for me, that was a part of my healing process because I couldn't help him as a sister, as a dentist, get him an earlier biopsy, or help him through his treatment, help my parents. I couldn't do anything because of the circumstances, but I could at least do his last wish. And so I created this book. It's called Life Interrupted, Dr. Do a Survival Guide by him. And it's just, he talks about different life stuff, about morality, hope, ability to endure, and on healing, on moving on puppies. He had a dog that he absolutely loved, and the unconditional love of dogs, and love of parents, and how we sometimes tend to ignore parents, but their advice we should heed, and just life, what he thought of as he faced his death. So that was my way to heal, to complete something we did together. Because he was almost 8 years younger than me, so a lot of our stuff was different, and we were two different genders, two different lifestyles, but dentistry united us. We were in the same field, and this book is, a joint effort. Yeah.
And I think it's such a lovely thing to be able to say that you've done together. It's that joint, something that is now yours. But I think earlier you mentioned about the elephant in the room and how death is coming. We all aware of that, and yet it's that it's like really I know it's coming and I can't talk about it. And then I guess later on in retrospect, you're thinking kind of is there anything else that I could have said? And not necessarily in a regretful kind of way, but it's just in a in part of that journey of how do I feel with things, is there something else? And I think you're saying about your brother, and I think for mine as well, is that they accepted their, because they knew, right? I mean,
Thank you.
as you
Yeah.
say, it was on the cards. It was very, they knew it's coming, and that's, of course, we all know that we're not going to stay here forever. But for people like him and like my brother, they knew that it's coming, and so they are ready for it in a way that we are not ready for it.
It's so true. So true. Yeah. When I had known that Manu was going to go, again, he wasn't able to talk much, and we were in two different countries. So we would text a lot. And when I had received a diagnosis that this is, from somebody, from the doctors, that, you need to make end of life decisions, I couldn't verbalize what I wanted to tell him. I couldn't call him and just have him listen to what I wanted to tell him. I actually wrote him an email telling him how much he meant to me. Again, dodging the bullet, dodging about death. It's just like how, because he was almost 8 years younger than me. I vividly remember bringing him home from the hospital, him taking his few steps in front of me, starting to walk, graduating high school, graduating dental school. I was pregnant with my second when he graduated dental school. So all these, life moments, I was telling him about how much he meant. And even at the end, I said, the world's waiting for you. You fight. I never said goodbye. I just said, you keep pushing, you keep fighting. I, you have so much to give to the world. And don't for a second, like, and he was a fighter. He kept fighting, and he talks about it, how he will fight to his last death, even though he knows that he may not survive. And it's terminal. It was nothing there. And so he's like, "What, I'm going to fight to my last breath," and he did. And that's what I asked him to do. I'm like, just keep fighting. I never said later. I never did until I saw his dead body. Yeah.
And tell me, the fact that he was a dentist and the cancer was oral, what is there does that mean something different to you than it might be mean to someone else?
Well, his cancer started in the tongue, and I guess part of it is, he was healthy, non-smoker, non-drinker, not somebody. The only characteristic, or the only reason, um, risk factor that he had, that he was a male. That's it. He was young, healthy. Otherwise, no other. He wasn't vaping, or chewing tobacco, and it's just the irony of it all, that him being a dentist and I'm being a dentist, and I saw the lesion. I said, please get an earlier biopsy. He's like, no, this is nothing big. It's an autoimmune thing. It'll heal on its own. And initially it didn't hurt, and then it started to hurt. And then eventually he did get the biopsy. But, had he been pushed for an earlier biopsy, and that's kind of what I focus on, is like, when you see something in your body, get it checked out, even though you may think it's nothing. It's better to be sure than not sure. And I think with Manu, it was like, he was dentist, like, I got this, I know this. I have friends who are oral surgeons. I have, it can't be cancer. I'm so young. There's that denial. And I think that's with everybody who's, at the peak of their life. And so I feel like it's just the irony. And I feel like, because I am in the profession that I am, and so was Manu, and there's so many cases that are on the rise. I actually did an interview with the British Dental Journal. I was featured in the November issue, not this past November, the November before, and on this cancer awareness, on how the cases are rising, what we can do, and bringing awareness, and having people, dentists, do exams, more thorough screening, and as well as patients to be more aware, like just how you would do a breast exam, to be conscious of what's in your mouth, and watch out for lesions that are not healing. And so, and that's kind of been my focus, and just the situation that I am in, something that I did not ask for. I did not expect to be in. I never foresee this, but I am here. I am, and I think uh, just trying to make a difference. Yeah, so it means a lot.
And yeah, and what do you think is the reason for cases to be more common these days?
Well, part of it definitely vaping, especially in our younger population, exposure to that. Traditional risk factors, yes, smoking, vaping, chewing tobacco, all of that are there. But also, one of the biggest risk factors is the human papillomavirus, which is the HPV, which in Canada now, even dentists in Alberta, where my brother was from, the dentist can vaccinate against HPV, and usually you get it under for younger population when before they become sexually active, so 11 preteens, your 11, 12-year-olds. And in the US, same thing, we get HPV vaccines to our teens, um, which is one dose. And that's the risk factor. So it's the same kind of HPV, the human papillomavirus, causes six other forms of cancer, including cervical cancer. So when you get a pap smear at the gynecologist, that's what they're checking for. And because it's the most sexually transmitted disease worldwide. Okay, HPV is more than STDs, and it's something that stays dormant, a virus that stays dormant. Sometimes our body's most clear out of our system within 1 to 2 years, but others it stays dormant, and then later on in life, it does progress into cancer, and it becomes an aggressive cancer because it's close to vital structures, it's close to the lymph system, it's close to, head and neck, and it progresses quite rapidly. But that's the main cause of the increase in oral cancers, the HPV virus. And for Manu, to give you an example, there are lots of survival stories, and I'm so happy for them. Manu wasn't as lucky, but for your listeners, Manu's cancer started in the tongue, and it kind of looked like this raw patch. It progressed to half his tongue was like this black ulcerated. He couldn't eat, talk, pain in the jaw. So those are kind of the symptoms. And then he had half his tongue removed and grafted from his arm. So his tongue looked like two different colors. And after surgery, he had a big scar on his left arm, which caused him some numbness. And then he also went through radiation, chemo. But the cancer started in the tongue. It went to his lungs. And within a year and a half, he died. But in the PET scans, it showed metastasis down to his pelvic bone. So the cancer just, even though he had this major surgery, the cancer returned within 8 months, and it traveled lungs and all the way down to his pelvic. So it progresses. It's very aggressive, especially in young people. So catching it early, getting that earlier diagnosis is kind of the key to survival.
And so you mentioned that you want to talk a little bit also about the symptoms and the signs and stuff like that. And of course, you already said if you find anything that you don't recognize, go in and check. But is there anything else that people should really be made aware of that?
Yeah, anything in your mouth should heal within 2 weeks. Anything in your mouth. You bit your tongue, you burnt your tongue, you scratched it, you brushed wrong, whatever. You hurt yourself somehow, it should heal within 2 weeks. And if it doesn't, and it's growing, whether it's painful or not, whether it's growing or not, it's just persistent. Anything that's persistent, red or white, should kind of get biopsied. So if you have trouble swallowing, if you feel like a lump in your neck, just on one side, not the other side, those are some signs and symptoms. Kind of like be wary of it and get it checked out. Just like you look for a lump in your breast, if you find a lump in your neck, you want to get it checked. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm just curious. The title of our talk is called when a dream becomes a nightmare. So what was the dream? I mean, I guess we know what the nightmare was, but what was the dream?
Well, the dream was my parents, right? They moved. My parents are immigrants. They moved from India. My dad actually worked in the UK for a few years before we moved to Abu Dhabi, which is the UAE, and spent a year in Doha. And then they migrated to Canada, and I went to my I did my dentistry in the US, my undergrad and dental school in the US. And I went went back to Canada, and then, so the dream was the immigrant's dream. My parents educated, they sacrificed like a lot of immigrants do. My dad is a chemical engineer, my mom is a teacher, so they valued education. They worked hard, they moved from country to country, and they finally settled, made Canada home. And Manu was there since his teens, early teens. And that was the immigrant dream, to have successful kids. My dad was a senior position at an international company in Canada. My mom worked for the Calgary Board of Education. So they were well settled, well established in their own careers while establishing ours, their children's. And they got me married to a doctor, that whole package that we all kind of dream that we'll go to a different land and we will make this, the golden ticket, so to speak, or whatever, the immigrant dream. And for them to be in their late 60s, 70s, to have to cremate their youngest child, that they sacrificed so much to come to a country for, and to enjoy the fruits of their labors at that age. In your 60s, 70s, they've retired from their positions that they worked hard in. They've got grandkids. They were hoping for Manu to have their grandkids, and the life to move and progress and play with them, play with their grandchildren, enjoy the families, uniting and celebrating life, and to enjoy that. And for all to be taken away. And, they said goodbye to Manu in the hospital, and his body was taken to the morgue, and they had nobody to rely on. Because of COVID, I wasn't there, no friends, family, COVID restrictions, hospital restrictions. They left him to be taken to a morgue and come home. That kind of degree of hurt and anger and just the reality of it all, that requires a lot of strength that I don't think I could ever process doing that with my own child, if God forbid anything. But they did that, and that's, now they're living a nightmare. Cancer still takes, and I'm sure you relate to this, cancer still takes a seat at our table, a seat at our family celebrations. We don't celebrate birthdays anymore. My dad will never, Manu and I planned his 70th birthday. It got canceled because of COVID, and his cancer had returned. We were to take a trip to Hawaii, right? We'll never have these family reunions anymore. And when I lose my parents, I will not have my brother to share my parents with. Life is, the natural progression of life is that the old generation leaves, and then the young generation takes over. This was a role reversal. My parents trying to clean out my brother's house, his life, closing up chapters of his life. And that's very unnatural and unreal. And I wish that on no one. And I'm sure, you can relate, but it's a nightmare. We're still living it. And it's a constant reminder that Manu is gone, his suffering is gone, his scars that he bore are gone on his body that he had from radiation, chemo. But my parents and I still bear the scars that can't be seen, the emotional scars, and missing him at every occasion, and just thinking, what if things could have been different? What if we wake up and this was all just a bad dream?
Yeah, I am familiar with the with the dreams, and that thing of, for me, I mean, I dream about my brother all the time, and then in the morning it's like, ah, damn it, you have to go back. Here. So that's I definitely know that one. But so before we finish for today, tell me what is in the future for you. What is something that is coming up for you?
Well, I hope lots of people get to read this book, because this book is just a testament to love and resilience and fighting, and the brilliance of it all. And I'd love to read a small verse of the book if time allows.
Yeah, please.
And just sharing the story, sharing the grief, because a lot of, and I felt in COVID, there was a lot of isolation. People were going through their own griefs in different levels, whether it's loss of a family member or job or situation, or and so ability to share and ability to make a difference that I can because of who I am as a profession. And if I can save a life, then I couldn't save my brothers, but if I can save someone else, then I would feel that I made it. I made a difference.
Mm,
Yeah.
thank you. Do you want to read that paragraph or?
Yeah, I will read one quick paragraph, and it is from the chapter New Beginnings. And I quote my brother here. One of the most important things that I have learned during these turbulent and difficult times is to accept the loss of control and to continue to ride the wave day by day. The ability to focus and get through each day is imperative when your world collapses around you. I write this as I am in a hospital bed with one lung almost collapsed from fluid, and to be perfectly honest, I have found my peace. I understand that every day is a new journey, and I focus on getting through the days, enjoying little victories, and having complete faith that the future will unfold as it should. And my worries and anxieties are normal but fruitless and will not define a new path in my life. What is imperative is inner peace, strength, and truly believing that there will be a better life in this world or the next. End quote.
I like that a lot. Thank you for choosing this beautiful quote, beautiful
Yeah,
paragraph.
he wrote this when he was in isolation for 2 weeks in the hospital in January, 2 months before his death. And I knew when he wrote and I had read this that it was any day now. Yeah.
Yes, but I think something that I really believe in is that that we are just passing here, and we go through whatever we go through, and this is the growth for the soul. It's and so
It,
where we're moving on to is it's all counted
yes.
basically.
Yes. And he was an old soul. He may be young in years, but he was an old soul who moved on.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Young and
he
human.
left behind these beautiful messages, and I also sincerely hope that more people, that a lot of people read these and take this to heart, because obviously it's beautiful messages for us all.
Yeah.
So I am going to leave, of course, all the links to your social links. I'm going to leave that at the bottom of the chat and everywhere that I publish the podcast. But Parul, thank you so much for being here with us and for sharing your story and for letting us be, to share a little bit, your brother's life and who he was. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping him alive. I appreciate it.
Thank you.